Welcome to Abandoned Albums, the documentary podcast. Each week, our intrepid group of researchers and music archivists dig through the record crates of the world, finding those albums that may have been lost over time. If a new artist is discovered along the way, that's all the better. Using a patent-pending algorithm and spirited debate, we pick one album to discuss. Once that is settled, we will invite the artists to Thunder Love Studio to chat with your hosts, Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. When we're lucky, they say yes. Our mission with Abandoned Albums is simple: to make sure artists' recorded work remains, or in some cases, lands on, the cultural radar. We invite you to sit back and relax. Thank you for joining us.
Trace your bloodline, they'll take care of you. They're still your family, no matter what they've done to you. And the cold air stings my eyes as I take his hand. He says, just let your body do the rest.
This week, we welcome the talented Orenda Fink to Thunder Love Studio to discuss her memoir, The Witch's Daughter, My Mother, Her Magic, and the Madness That Bound Us. Of course, we also discussed her extraordinary music career, which is as varied as excellent. We also talked about her becoming certified as a Jungian Depth Coach. Basically, we talked with Orenda about her entire career, and you're going to love the conversation. I promise. The episode and conversation speak for themselves, so let's jump into it. Here's our conversation with Orenda Fink.
Hey, Troy. Keith, meet Orenda.
Hi, Orenda. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Are we on, or is it?
We're just recording.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Hi, guys.
I was telling Keith before you got on, Orenda, that the seedlings for this episode really were planted many moons before your book came out, when I had reached out to you on Instagram and said, hey, do you remember like 25 years ago in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, my little band opened for Little Red Rocket, and you guys were just really, really nice to us. And then, of course, you published this wonderful book, and I thought, after reading the book, and we're going to explore this. We're going to explore the book quite a lot, but that book was a lightning bolt for me. It was very impactful, and I think Keith and I both, I don't want to give too much away, but Keith and I both had complex relationships with our moms, and both of us have read the book now, and I don't want this to turn into a therapy session.
That's all right. It can. but
there may be elements of that. I have to confess. So, as a podcast that tries real hard to create a comprehensive retrospective of an artist's catalog, your book as a companion piece to your musical career really provides a richness and a context to all of your music that is almost unprecedented. I mean, it's you call it a memoir.
Yes.
It almost doesn't read as a memoir. It almost reads as a novel. It's so engaging. It's so well-paced. And candidly, the characters are so rich and interesting. And I say characters like you made them up. Your memories are so vivid and your story is so interesting that it does seem like a piece of fiction.
Thanks. You're not the first person that has said that. I think that's a couple reasons. I have a good trauma memory. I wouldn't say a good memory across the board, because interestingly, like, the traumatic memories are kind of like my only memories, but they really are very detailed to me. And two, I it was very, very important to me to write. I mean, I'm not trying to say it is a literary memoir, but that's what I was going for, because I didn't want it to be a music memoir.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be about childhood trauma. And so I really wanted it to be in the canon of The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls and Mary Karr's Liars Club, which I know are, that's a huge goal to have. But that was what I was shooting for. So I really spent, years and, hours and hours and hours of studying plot structure and how to write. And, I didn't graduate from college. And so I taught myself how to do all of this stuff, but structure was one of the things that I started understanding, even in memoir, is very, very important. So, and that was kind of difficult because structure for fiction is, you can make it all up. But how do you structure a memoir of everything that's already, it is what it is, so, but with that same kind of intense pacing and arcs, emotional arcs, basically. All that to say, thank you. It wasn't easy.
I think you were wildly successful.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's so for me, there's so much backstory, like with the childhood trauma and talking about, and I am an Alabama guy, so a lot of the geography resonates with me, talking about Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, a lot of these, even the smaller communities that you reference. I'm like, oh, my college roommate was from Aniana, so I spent a fair amount of time there, all these different places. And you weave this tapestry of a very complex upbringing, but it's one of the interesting things to me as a kid that grew up in a family that referenced, within our own family, there was a thing that we called the shine. And certain family members had the shine and some did not. And it really had to do a lot with the supernatural and can you see ghosts and that type of thing. And specifically to our family, what are your dreams all about? Because there was a lot of foretelling and future sight within the dreams. So all of the supernatural elements and the southernness, the Alabama-ness of those elements in the book, nom, 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 nom. I just wonderful. Do you feel like it's a Southern take on those supernatural things?
You mean what I experienced or the way I wrote about it?
I think both.
Yes, I do. I mean, I do think, and I think it's especially interesting that you had a very similar upbringing and related to a lot of it. And that speaks to kind of answering that question. I do think there is a uniquely Southern kind of magical thinking. I don't know. It's a way to look at spirituality that's outside of organized religion. And I think it's it's definitely in the African-American culture, and it's in a lot of the, I'd say, kind of white poor culture too.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, if it's like folk magic or what the right word for it is, but I think it expresses itself differently. Like, it sounds like it's like different in your family than it was in mine, but it's like this rogue spirituality or this rogue magic that maybe was taught by a grandmother or maybe made up by her moms. I don't know, and I do touch on that a little bit in the book of like, what is all of this? Is any of this real? And that's why I wanted to go to Haiti at one point in my life and study voodoo and magic to see how it related to what I had been taught and brought up with.
My impression of your book was that you were never really dismissive of those things in your life, that really from a very young age, you were pretty open to the idea that magic is real and there are some very observable real properties to this. I thought a recurring theme. It wasn't just one instance where, oh, hey, this seemed a little spooky. Like, it was pretty regular.
Yeah, I mean, that is just the world that I grew up in. So I wonder, but I'm not sure that, my older sister that I've been estranged from, I'm not sure that she has that same reality. And I know that my little sister doesn't either. She's an atheist. So it's interesting because just because you were steeped in that experience doesn't mean that you are going to view it the same way that I did. And to be honest, I think what really, I tried to deny it. There is a part in the book where I really tried to rebel against everything my mom did, her smoking, her drinking, her witchcraft. Some people might think, oh, wow, that's the coolest mom in the world, but it was not at the time. But it was the precognitive dreams that I started having at around 14, 15 that kind of like the mob, it pulled me back in. I was like, oh, no, it was undeniable once I started having, my dreams started coming true. I didn't know what it was, but I knew there was something that was beyond explanation there. And that is kind of, I feel like, honestly, it was the dreams that were what the thread that pulled me through my life. And even till now, I study Jungian psychology because of my interest in dreams and specifically precognitive dreams that just say, I don't know what it is, but there's something that we don't know, about our human experience.
I'd like to invoke a song because I mentioned to you as we were communicating in preparation for this episode, it is very hard now that I've read your book to listen to any of your music the same way. And some songs, I may be emailing you for years to come. Because some songs you say, well, Maria wrote that, or that's not really about the book. And then some songs, it fits hand in glove. One of the moments in the book that I thought was expertly timed in the reveal and the way it is introduced into the story is the notion that your mother was potentially haunted by your grandfather. Mm-hmm. And the song Lorraine has a lyric, your daddy loved you wrong while he pointed his gun, while your mother turned her free, being princess of grace. And they left you in the woods to find your way back like a dog.
Being always on the run.
That's very, very powerful, and it's beautiful poetry on its own. But after you read your book, that's ground shaking.
It's all literal. They're not metaphors.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like there's this realization as a listener, that's not really poetry. That's a confession. That's your life. That is you sharing your trauma.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
I don't know that there's a question in there so much as an observation. Like, holy shit, Orenda. It's incredibly honest.
Yeah, I feel like I am an honest writer. And it doesn't mean that I haven't written things that haven't been honest, but I find that when I do, I immediately, I don't know, like I wouldn't say not rewarded, because that seems like a weird way to describe what we do, but I can tell when I'm honest about things, it doesn't mean it's monetary or even necessarily critically. It just feels right. Like, if you think of art and what you're putting out in the world as having a natural flow or a divine flow, the things that are honest, and I think people can feel that too, what's honest and what isn't. And so whatever's coming up for me at the time, I try to be as honest as I can to it, to speak to it. And the book was certainly, the ultimate version of that, which is why I decided to write a book, because I thought, well, this can't really be expressed in songs,
No, you're 100% right about the truth coming through. I think I can read it, and I think anyone can hear it, see it. If it's honest, it permeates everything else.
You describe Little Red Rocket as a party band.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about why did you choose? Because I never got the impression that there was anything. To me, party band is almost dismissive. Like, well, that wasn't my real art.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, right or wrong, Maria and I both feel that way about Little Red Rocket. I mean, we look back on it with a lot of nostalgia and sentimentality is the word. But I don't think once we started Azure Ray, in comparison to Little Red Rocket, we really, I think, like I said, right or wrong, we kind of shelved that or, compartmentalized it as the party band, the band that wasn't honest or wasn't, as artful. I don't know. I guess you let the world decide those things, but that is how we feel about it. And again, it doesn't mean that we don't like it and aren't proud of it or have fun listening to it, but that, to me, I felt like there was a line drawn between Little Red Rocket and Azure Ray of depth, of depth of lyrics, basically.
I may potentially be biased based on my favorable experience with Little Red Rocket.
Great.
There's a soft spot for me
Yeah.
that it is a fun memory and I don't know. I think maybe you're too hard on that band.
Well, I think we were both cutting our teeth too, and so when you look back, and some of your earlier work, you feel that way regardless. But thank you. I will take that and I'll pass that on to Maria.
Please do. Please do. I'm so, and this may be one of the more lyric heavy episodes that we've ever done, Keith. So my apologies for that. But golly gee, the song "The Devil's Feet." I'm going to quote again. She lifted her soul clean, oh clean, like the story she was told on a dark country road. The same man appeared to me. There are a lot of ghosts in your lyrics.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of ghosts in my life. The Devil's Feet was more of an atmosphere piece. I think it didn't have a specific story attached to it. So that would be one, unlike Lorraine, that it's like, yeah, actually, those aren't metaphors. This one would be. This is more I think just an atmosphere piece, and it kind of it kind of shows a little bit of my experience of the South. Maybe my wistfulness of the South, of the dark romanticism of the South, and that kind of spirituality and that connection, that the human and the divine, whether it's dark or light, and that struggle. But really, yeah, it was almost like when I wrote it, I was in a very visual space with it more than, let's say, an emotional or lyrical space. If that makes sense.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Are you finding, now that the book is out into the world and it's I have to imagine a certain level of catharsis for you, are you finding that reconnecting with some of your older songs, that your interpretation of what you wrote, maybe 10, 15 years ago, you're going, aha, I was onto something back then that now I have fully explored?
Mm-hmm. I think that actually I'm about to do this. I haven't done it yet, but I was going to make a Witch's Daughter playlist. And so, yeah. And, if it gets published, probably write a little bit about each song I choose. But if not, it'll be, an Apple Music or Spotify playlist. But so I'm about to get really deep into it, but, I'm pretty familiar with the catalog anyway. And so, so I could probably still speak about it. But one thing that I think stands out as a whole is that my relationship with my mother and the undiagnosed, unknown personality disorder has caused me immense torment my entire life. And confusion. And I think that I have been working that out through music for 40 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of unpacking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's not like there's, any like song that, this is the song that I realized this, but you can kind of see it over many decades, kind of permeating even the romantic songs.
Sure. It's laced through your whole career.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't want to make this episode too much about me.
No, please do. Actually, I love it.
It's almost impossible, Jeff.
I would love to hear more.
I tell you, the challenge that you had arriving at a diagnosis and giving it name and saying, I think there is mental illness here. And then going the step further of saying, I think there's mental illness here, and here is that diagnosis, and here are, because I think in the book you say she checks all the boxes. Mm-hmm. And wow, did that sock me on the jaw, because I think I also have a checks all the boxes scenario, and the resistance to being categorized or labeled in any way associated with mental illness. And I talk about it a lot with my wife. I talk about it a lot with my peer group. There is, I think, a generational divide where our generation maybe is a little more open to things like therapy and okay with trying to deal with mental illness challenges and work through those, where a generation before us, how dare you call me crazy? How dare you? Even the insinuation was worth lighting somebody on fire over. You deal with that throughout the whole book, throughout your whole life. I mean, it is a massive challenge.
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right about that. But I also would take it one step further and say that very specifically to people with personality disorders, cluster B personality disorders, which are borderline, narcissist, and antisocial. They're very, very resistant, even within that disorder specifically, to any kind of mental treatment or diagnosis. And we could have a whole big talk about that, but that gets more into the kind of the medical aspect of it and how the personality disorder operates. But so it's almost like there's a double whammy or you know what I mean, a double block into getting any kind of understanding of what's going on here, you know, like this, I call it, you know, the upside down world of being a child with someone with an undiagnosed personality disorder. Especially when you have a spouse, you know, or the other parent, a codependent parent that is not only allowing this madness to occur, but supporting it and gaslighting their own children, you know? And so, yeah, it has been a big challenge. And there's also, you know, there's a stigma to personality disorders, and I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for that. And I'm not trying to demonize anyone, no pun intended. But this is the reality of it, you know, and this is the reality of being a child of someone with this undiagnosed mental illness. And if you do find that you know, see yourself, let's say I'm saying, you know, if one hears this and sees themselves as my mother in the book, go get help, you know. Go get help before you lose everything. And that's, but you know, that, I guess that, yeah. So it is, things are, I think, hopefully are changing, and people that are in these kind of family systems can get help, and the people who are suffering from the disorder can get help as well.
I'll tell you where your arrow hit the middle of the bullseye for me, is that I believe they are discrete things that can operate independent of one another. You can have someone that is deeply connected to a spiritual world and mysticism and magic. All of those things I believe are real and can be independent of a person who has a legitimate mental illness and issue that they are struggling with. And the fact that your story has a very intimate intersection of those two things, for me, I went, because I think that it's very easy to confuse the two and say, well, they're mentally ill and therefore they believe in magic, or they believe in, you know, right? So there's a dangerous cross-pollination between the two that I think you do a beautiful job of separating and saying, no, both things are true independently and concurrently.
Great. I'm glad that you see it that way, because I certainly did not want to give that impression that, you know, that anyone that believes in this spiritual realm or witchcraft or magic is necessarily mentally ill. It's not true.
Right.
You know, and I believe in it. For whatever that's worth. But I do see it through more of a Jungian lens, but I think it's all semantics, like I kind of say in the book too. A lot of this is semantics, even maybe the idea of possession and a personality disorder. There's a lot of overlap there. Again, not to say that people with personality disorders are possessed. That's not what I'm saying at all. But but that this is just a complex, and, you know, it's darkly complex and in some ways beautifully complex life that we live. And I did have a friend who is a witch, and I mean, an acquaintance, let's say, because she doesn't know me that well. And when I was explaining the book to her and told her the title, she's like, "Oh no," you know, like, and I was like, "No," I was like, I hope that you know, that what you're worried about is not in the book. Yeah, I'm not disparaging witches by any means, but it, you know, I still have to tell the story, and this is the story. So yeah, so it was a line that was I wanted to be careful with, and I'm glad that you see it that way.
Truly I do. I don't know that you get a lot of that that deeply personal stuff out of Little Red Rocket, but certainly once you and Maria started Azure Ray, that honesty starts to come through, and absolutely in your solo records, you see a lot of that. Don't Make a Sound is a song that evokes those images of your mother on the front porch with alcohol. And I think in this song, the alcohol of choice is beer. Force cheap beer to go down. You could go all day and not make a sound. You could go all day and not make a sound. And that visual image for me, because there's an ominousness, I think, to that not making a sound. I think it's a very loud not making a sound.
You're sweeping up these sorry streets, and I knew somehow when you looked up and over me, and you could sit on your front porch and watch the walls die down. You could go out every night and force cheap beer down. You could go all day and not make a sound. You could go all day and not make a sound.
Let's talk a little bit about the role that alcohol played in all of this.
Big role. And that's also like, is that unique to the South? I don't know. There's a lot of heavy drinkers in the Midwest too, but
Yes, can confirm.
wait, about the South or the Midwest?
Midwest.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, me too. I lived there for 15 years.
Yeah.
Well, it played a very big role because my mother has, alcohol addiction. And part of, in the book is us kind of begging her as children to get help, and also those pleas also being ignored or diminished. And through the years till we kind of gave up on it. And then, but I drink, my little sister drinks. So, I drink a lot, but I hope I'm a responsible drinker. I generally have fun when I drink. But everyone has their own ideas about what's healthy or not. So I guess it's in general, alcohol plays a big role in my life. It may not always, but as far as it goes with my childhood and my upbringing, I mean, that's all we did was drink. I mean, there was probably 5 hours of the day, 6 hours. Sometimes every once in a while there'd be a day when everyone was hungover, but I mean, we drank and that's what we did. So, it was just a way of life. And the interesting thing about the alcoholism of my mother is that when I was reading about borderline and narcissistic personalities, borderline very specifically, I think a little more with the alcoholism, is that it certainly doesn't help the disorder, but they are likely to have similar, if not the same issues with or without alcohol, and that alcohol is actually a self-medication tool to numb the intense amount of emotional pain that these people are in. That is not to say that this is the way to handle this, but is it interesting to kind of see what people use as self-medication when they will not go to a doctor or a psychiatrist, and it's like, well, how different would things be without the alcohol? We don't know. We can't know that because we didn't experience it.
Right. Wow. Keith,
What do you think about that?
I almost see the gears turning for you, Keith.
Yeah, I just have a question. I mean, I grew up in an alcoholic family as well. Here we go, therapy. And there's this nagging thought that part of it is generational. I think the generation above us just drank, I think, to numb themselves to whatever they had to deal with and whatever they had to deal with. But I think from a child perspective, I can speak for myself. You grow up in an alcoholic environment and you know something's wrong, but nobody's telling you something's wrong. It's normal. It's okay that dad's drunk all the time. He wasn't abusive or anything like that. He's just quiet and reserved and drunk. But nobody's telling you. You learn to doubt yourself. You learn to doubt everything. I have, trust issues as a result of that. I'm curious if you experienced anything similar to that. It sounds like you were more open about the alcoholism.
Family? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were open about it except for calling it alcoholism.
Okay.
As soon as a kind of a condemnation of it came up from me or my sister, then it was very much squashed. No, there is no problem here. And then if it was undeniable that there was a problem, my mother would be really good at circumventing that back around to, there may be a problem, but this is my choice, or this is my I want this, and therefore I shall have it. I drink to make myself happy, and you can't take that away from me. Mm-hmm. So it was very much so much of a brick wall of ever, considering it that it might be a major problem, that the alcoholism aspect of it wasn't discussed within the family, but yet alcohol was a huge part, of all the fights and my mother's emotions, our emotional outbursts. But here's the interesting thing, Keith, I think, which is very different with our families. You said your father was drinking and was drunk, but he was very quiet, and it was more of like a hush hush thing. Yeah. Whereas at my house, it was like, it's party time, the stereo's going on. We've got bluegrass music rattling the dishes. My mom's drinking, she's smoking. It's like a bar. We're all laughing until we're not.
Yeah.
And then there's that moment in the night where things shift, and boy, do they shift, and it gets really, really dark, and it ends, usually with some kind of crying or screaming. And then the next day, everyone pretends like it doesn't happen. So it's almost like, sorry, I'm working this out. This is like therapy for me. What I think I'm trying to get to is that I wonder what it would have even been like without the alcohol, because I think the alcohol was this very interesting screen that we all hid behind, that we were fun and that we were having fun. There would just be this one little thing that would happen at the end of the night, where someone gets emotional, which was always around my mother. But otherwise, we were having a great time. And now, in hindsight, I'm like, were we having a great time?
Right. Yeah. For my 2 cents, it wasn't alcohol, it was cannabis. And that manifested in a completely different way. It is such a numbing agent emotionally. It's tamps everything down, calms everything down, that when the real emotions and when the temper tantrums and the narcissism did finally come out, it had been suppressed for so long that it was like a bottle of soda pop that you'd shaken up real aggressively. And when that cork comes off, it's all coming out.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I thought that the chapters in your life spent in Athens, your time with, and I say this because we very recently had Henry Owings on. I don't know if you know Henry. Mm-hmm. What a wonderful character he is. And he is something of an aficionado on the Elephant Six. So having spent some time with Henry very recently, to hear your stories of your time with Jeff and the relationships with the other artists and musicians there in Athens. You certainly made me want to go eat at specific restaurants in Athens, Georgia. Those sort of segued into you connecting with another musical hero of mine, Eric Bachman, and you were a part of the formation of Crooked Fingers. I wonder if you could it's not necessarily book related, but I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that part of your musical career.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a part of the formation of Crooked Fingers, but he was part of the formation of Azure Ray, certainly. And I think he was just starting Crooked Fingers, so he was moving into a new soundscape. So maybe they see, they were kind of both springing up from the same fertile soil of Eric Bachman's mind and heart. But I can't take any credit for Crooked Fingers. I mean, I sang backup on a song or something, but that genius is all him. And so is the first several Azure Ray records. We were lucky enough to meet Eric through Brian Causey of Manor Astroman, or formerly of Manor Astroman. I don't know if he's still playing with them or not.
He is.
He is. Okay.
Yeah.
And Brian had seen Maria and I play a tribute show to Maria's boyfriend who passed away. And I talk about that in the book. And we had started writing different types of songs. And maybe that's where the delineation of Little Red Rocket being the party band is. It was kind of like before Peter died and after Peter died. And after he died, it really obviously shook our world and our worldview and really changed everything for us personally for quite a while, and definitely musically. So we started writing songs where we were processing that loss. And we did a tribute show, and Brian Causey was there, and he said, "Girls, I'd like to put this music out, whatever it is that you're doing. I know exactly who should produce it. You want to do it?" And we were like, "Yeah, sure." So that's how it started. And we met Eric. We had no idea who he was. We just really looked into that, and did a record with Eric and Brian Causey's. It was in Brian Causey's house on an 8-track reel-to-reel, and no Pro Tools were used. I don't even think Pro Tools existed at that time, or if it did, it was so new. And yeah, so Eric was a huge part of creating the sound of Azure Ray. We had just demos, just acoustic guitar and songs, and he really imagined this beautiful, Southern Gothic, electric soundscape for them. So we're very lucky to have come across Eric at that time.
I'm so glad to hear you say Southern Gothic.
Yeah.
Totally get that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I may come out of this interview, Orenda, a client of yours, in that I would love to know more about you. You talk about the fact that you have explored a great deal of Jungian therapy, and if my understanding is correct, you actually offer some therapy or some sort of dream interpretation as a service. Tell me more about Jungian therapy and what that has come to mean for you, and what that might mean for someone who's very curious about their own dreams.
Yeah, so it's coaching. It's not therapy.
Okay.
But it is based in the theory of Jungian psychology, and Eastern religion a little bit too. There is some overlap with that. And basically where I am now with the coaching is that I focus on shadow work, which is looking into the unconscious, to bring out those things that really are directing or controlling our lives or keeping us stuck in patterns that we are not conscious of. And so let me tell you what, it literally blows your mind. What you are not conscious of that is running the show in a lot of ways. And so that's what Jung calls the shadow, is that which is in the personal unconscious that we are not aware of, that may be making, big decisions for us. And kind of also really pulls the strings of our emotional reactivity. That is deeply informed and related to our dreams. So for those of us who remember our dreams, everyone dreams. Mm-hmm. And some of us remember dreams more than others, and for different reasons. Some of that is unknown to us, but some of it is known. So the dreams literally give you a mirror world. They give you a peek into that unconscious world. And if you know how to interpret them, and I think Jung was a genius. I think he cracked the code as far as anyone possibly could in modern Western culture. And so I look at people's dreams and do dream interpretation and shadow work at the same time. And the two are complementary to each other. And Jeff specifically, maybe for you or not, but as far as people who have childhood trauma or have grown up under possible narcissistic personality style parents, this work is deeply transformative, because a lot of that which we're talking about, that's in the shadow, is created in childhood.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really kind of getting in there deep and lifting the veil. And then, and then the idea is so that you can kind of take conscious control over your life. And it has transformed my life as a childhood trauma survivor, I'll say.
How do you tackle dream interpretation for those of us that aren't lucid dreamers? Like I know I dream, but I just don't remember them.
So, well, lucid is actually means that you become conscious within your dream.
Oh,
that's what lucid dreaming is, and that's actually very rare. But as far as just remembering your dreams when you wake up, you can absolutely do the work without remembering your dreams, because there is still a shadow to contend with. You still have a very active life with your unconscious. And for those who just never remember their dreams, we do what Jung calls active imagination. So they're almost like led meditations, and you can get in there. You can almost kind of have like a waking dream. You can kind of see what symbols start pulling up from your unconscious through that. But also, I've had many clients who have started out with me saying they don't remember their dreams. And once you start the work, guess what happens?
You remember the dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes they're like, can you make them stop?
Right.
And I'm like, no, this is good. We need this. Like, let it keep coming.
The only way out is through.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
You had a musical project, the O and S. I assume that's
O plus S.
O plus S. Okay. Did I read correctly? Is the formation of that group, or is there some connection to that music tied back to your trip to Haiti?
There is on the first record. So O plus S is a project with me and Cedric Lemoyne, formerly of Remy Zero. Are you familiar with Cedric? Do you know?
I'm a Birmingham guy. Of course.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
He's one of my dearest friends. Although he hasn't called me in a while, and I need to like rib him about that. But so it's really essentially a duo, a project with the two of us. And on the first record, we used a lot of field recordings in the creation of the music, and some of those were field recordings from Haiti.
Your description of that trip in the book,
oh yeah,
is amazing.
Thanks. Haiti, it basically was my first education in foreign politics and spiritual and a certain type of spirituality as well. So there was a lot of big changes there. I really started to understand on a deeper level of the way some of our, let's say, altruistic ideas about how the U.S. works and other countries affect other countries in a really negative way. So that was huge for me to kind of get that education on the ground there with people I trusted. And then also, I had I used to call it a spiritual awakening, but now I realize that life is just a series of spiritual awakenings over and over and over again, leading to, I don't know, the day we die, I guess. And that maybe that's the point, is to arrive somewhere better than where you started. But one of them was in Haiti for sure. And I just had the most amazing guide, Jean-Luc de Sable. And he is a voodoo priest and interfaith minister. And he taught me so much about voodoo and took me and my husband out to some very intense provincial voodoo ceremonies. So I was able to see things with my own eyes that, again, kind of going back to, wow, I can't really reconcile this as anything but magical. These things should not be possible in our understanding of the human world. So that in and of itself was hugely transformative to me. And interestingly enough, after I began studying Jungian psychology, I think there's a parallel between the voodoo philosophy or theology and Jungian psychology. I think there's a lot of parallels between them. I can't go into that right now, but I thought it was interesting that I was drawn to both of them, in some type of way. But
can you give us an example?
Well, I think that the in voodoo there's this pantheon of spirits. It's an ancestor worshiping religion, and Loa, if I'm saying it correctly, is the Creole word for the spirits, and that's Urzuli and Gade and all these ones that you may have heard of, may have not, but they're all the major spirits in voodoo. Legba, those to me are basically what Jung would call the archetypes in the collective unconscious. So they're expressions of our human nature, kind of split from us into these very specific archetypes that we can work with once we understand that they're within us, that you may see as positive or negative, but they're really neither. They're just natural. And so I see voodooists as kind of really taking those archetypes and personifying them, pulling them out of the spirit world into the real world, and quote unquote serving them or working them or needing to bring them into themselves for certain reasons. And Jungian psychology is somewhat similar to that too. We recognize those archetypes within ourselves, like the mother archetype or the father archetype. For example, it's like Jung believes that we have a mother archetype within us that is separate from our mother. And this is great news for those of us with challenging mothers. And that if you are able...
Okay.
If you're able to really look in there and see how maybe that your childhood has affected that very pure mother archetype from within you, you can uncover that and pull that out and be that mother for yourself. If that makes sense. And that's an archetype. Are you following me on this?
I am.
Okay, great. So yeah, I think that's the correlation between the two, and also the beauty of Jung's work too, is that everything that we need, we have within us, even if we have been through, the shit that is making us feel like we don't have it, or it doesn't exist in a certain way, or when you've been taught that being a mother is this thing.
Yeah.
from the outside, you can spend the rest of your life seeing the world through that lens, or you can kind of uncover that from your unconscious and pull out the more beautiful, pure mother archetype for yourself.
I think decades of therapy helped me understand this a little bit better.
Well, yeah, I think again, it's semantics, because like reparenting the inner child would be another way of talking about that. There's lots of different ways you could come at it, but it's, you understand it's transformative work.
Jane, what can you tell me about this man you saw last night?
He's Caucasian.
Caucasian?
Yeah, a white guy with a mustache, about 6'3".
An awfully big mustache.
Full confession, Orenda, in addition to sort of tracking your career as a musician, because goodness, you've touched so many varied projects and had so much beautiful music brought into the world. I am also a big fan of your husband, and the two of you are such an interesting contrast, because your music, and I don't want to get into, I do not think that whispercore is a appropriate umbrella to put you under, but I think that label does indicate the softness and the delicacy that oftentimes you bring to your approach to creation. Your husband is extremely percussive, very angular, very loud, very forward. And that's not to say there's not subtlety to his music, but the project that you did together with Closeness is such an interesting combining of those two things.
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, what was the goal of Closeness, is to bring together our individual strengths and turn it into something new. So it didn't sound like The Faint or Azure Ray necessarily. So you're exactly right. We started the project. I mean, we only have one EP out, but we started it after I had my heart surgery, because I really had a year of just being very quiet and very much at home. And I think part of that was recovery and part of it was depression. And this, it was basically like, where do I want to be? I want to be home. So we were like, okay, great. Let's start our first project together. And yeah, I don't know. Basically it was just kind of like us sitting together in a room and just making music together and seeing how it went. And that Closeness was the result of that. And I don't know. He was actually just getting on to me today because he wants to do more of it. But I think I'm pretty much retired from music. And so, he may be able to twist my arm, but I think I'm really at a crossroads, in my life with art, and I just really feel very comfortable with writing and coaching right now. Honestly, I've been happier than I've been in a long time, and more creatively fulfilled. So I'm trying to listen to what my heart is telling me there, rather than, it's very easy to stay in the path that you've been on for a long time. But I'm trying to, like I said, listen to where my heart's telling me to go.
Well, not to throw your own words back at you, but in the book, you reference a moment where you say, I'm done with music, and then proceeded to make another 12 albums.
That's true.
So never say never.
That's true. But also, what's funny about that part too is that I realized I've been trying to quit music for the last 15 years. Damn, Rilo Kiley.
Thank you.
I'd have a PhD by now if Rilo Kiley hadn't sucked me back in, but I don't regret anything.
Thank you, Rilo Kiley, I guess. I am very curious to know, and we're right at an hour, so we won't keep you the rest of the night, as tempting as it is. The extent to which you are candid in your book, and the level of honesty. In my family, I've got some members of my family that have chosen to go no contact with my mom. I'm still in her life. It's still something that we work through. I am curious to know, I could not write that book. I wouldn't be brave enough to publish that book, because I think there would be a constant fear following me around that, oh my God, what happens when she reads it?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yep. I very much am living with that fear. And I actually had a dream about it last night. I won't go into it, but it was a profound dream that really was giving me a message from my soul. And the message is for me to stop fucking worrying about it. Mm-hmm. To be honest. And that's kind of a harsh way of saying it, but and my point is I'm struggling with this, and I think that it's very difficult to see your parents as abusers because you love them, and no matter what, there is some kind of love there. But the truth is that, and it's interesting because it was my uncle actually that said it. He's like, anyone that reads this book can clearly see how much you and your sister were tormented your entire lives. And anyone that's going to judge you for that, including your parents, you don't need them. So these are the kind of things I have to tell myself every day to pull myself out of that very fearful place. Because I do think in some ways when I wrote the book and when I, shopped it and went along with the whole process, I was kind of dissociated a little bit, but yet something was telling me to do it. Something was overcoming the fear and saying, do this. Now it's done. And now I'm sitting with it. And this is the second stage of that. It's like, so I get what you're saying, and it's very real. But yet I was compelled to do it. And I am listening to my heart and my soul, my dreams, and taking it day by day.
Do you think there's ever a time where you will connect with her again? Or is the book maybe a part of closing that door?
I don't know. I take cues from my therapist who says when you decide to go no contact, and I'm not sure about how your family members feel about it, but she said, you're not signing a contract in blood here. This is your decision, and you can change that decision anytime you want. But you have to wake up every day and ask yourself, is today the day that something will be different if I do go back?
Right.
Wow.
Right.
And
Wow.
if the answer is no, then, you might want to think about it. I will say this too, and this is pretty heavy, but I've been getting a lot of messages from people who have been thanking me for telling my story. And one of them that really struck me, I even cried a little bit, was a woman who said that she went no contact with her mother I think she said 8 years ago, but was not able to get her siblings out, and that her sister died a year ago. And she felt that she died, I think the quote was, because it was her only escape.
Oh, God.
And so here is this, when I think about my sister and everything we went through, and I see that how this ended that was my worst nightmare,
Yeah.
And I've got this person giving me this very real, account of that. So, and those are the ways that I'm like, this is hard, this is difficult, but I do think that this book will help people.
I can confirm. I am a living testament. The context that I was able to put together within my own story as a result of reading your book is, I cannot thank you enough. I think I keep using that word brave. I really do. I think it's an extraordinarily brave book because of the candor. I think it's brilliant because of the way the story unfolds. It reads very narratively, like a wonderful piece of fiction that is well crafted. So I commend you for that. But I think more than anything, it is the honesty and the heart of the book that you have brought to the world that is going to help a lot of people. And it's because of those things that are so hard to quantify, and because of those things that are so difficult to put a label on, you really help contextualize those things. I think it's a wonderful piece, and I thank you for it.
Well, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, what Jeff said.
You're the worst, Higgins. And then above and beyond that, you've made a couple of pretty okay songs too.
Oh yeah, there was that part.
There's a couple of musical artifacts along the way. It's an incredible career. I hope that Rilo Kiley calls. I hope, and you know what? There's one last thing that I want to, and it's more of an observation. How lovely that you and your husband's relationship is so strong and beautiful and unique that when you got married, that you inverted the dominant social paradigm. He took your last name, and I think that's super fucking cool.
Right, wow. Thanks. But the funny thing is, I begged him not to.
Oh, really? No,
I did. And because I was like, and this is 20 years ago. I was like, you don't want this name. This name is cursed. I was like, this name is cursed. Why would you take this name?
Oh, that's very funny.
Yeah,
it is funny.
That's very funny. Well, I hope you and Todd make more music together, because I really did like the Closeness record. I thought it was cool. May you and Maria continue to make music together, because it's very, very rare that two voices were born to sing together, and you both clearly acknowledge that and celebrate that. And then all of your solo stuff, I think you're just a very beautiful poet, and so all the above. Just keep doing all of it, and the Jungian coaching, all of it,
all of it.
Do you plan on writing another book?
I do.
You do.
I do.
Will it be fiction or another memoir, or any idea?
Probably not another memoir, but I hope. I'm just like, can nothing happen to me for the next fucking 20 years? That would be great. Thank you. but so I think either fiction or nonfiction,
Okay.
but probably not another memoir. Yeah.
Great. I look forward to that.
Thanks. Thank you.
You had your hook so deep in my cheek when you were like, yeah, I got this, was it a seance? What was the ceremony where you sort of discovered your grandfather? Oh my God, that whole reveal was so good. And I was like, you could have written a whole nother book just about that.
About, the going to the shaman. And
Yes.
stuff? Like,
Yes. Oh, it's great. It's wonderful. And what I hope is that we're giving just enough information that people listening to this podcast are like, holy shit, I have to read this book.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's what we want.
Oh, Orenda, thank you.
And don't be scared of the book either. That's another thing.
It's gorgeous.
It really is.
It's a gorgeous piece of memoir. I started to say fiction.
It's a gorgeous piece of writing.
It's a gorgeous piece of writing. Thank you, Keith, for saving that. Leave it to the playwright to save my ass.
Oh, I want to read your plays.
No. Okay.
Let us know when your book is optioned, because I do think it'd make a fantastic film.
A lot of people are saying that, and if any directors are listening, come talk to me. That's all I gotta say. But I do think it would too. But I it would take the right vision, I think.
Yes.
But
those people are out there.
Yeah, they are, and a lot of people are saying that. So we'll see.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome, and I'm going to look forward to that playlist as well.
You're right.
I'm going to get on that immediately, and I will definitely send it to you guys.
Please.
Thank you for coming on.
It's been
a genuine pleasure.
This has been an absolute delight to speak to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Success, Orenda.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
You too.
Many thanks to Orenda for her time and the stories. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to everything mentioned in the show.
This episode of Abandoned Albums was written and produced by Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. The show was recorded at Thunderlove Studio, where it was engineered by
Daphne Morris,
with help from
Penetration.
Abandoned Albums was edited by
Vic Titball,
with help from
Clem Fandango.
At the beginning of this podcast, you were treated to a diverse selection of music, including the soulful sounds of Forever by Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul, the indie vibes of Velvet Roof by Buffalo Tom, and the raw energy of Nevermind by The Replacements. Our theme song is Kiss the Earth by The Renegades. You can stream all of these artists wherever you stream your favorite music. The songs you heard during this podcast were Bloodline by Orenda Fink, Lorraine, and Don't Make a Sound by Azure Ray, and Personality Therapy by Closeness. All of these songs are available on their respective Bandcamp pages, which we link to in the show notes. You can stream Orenda's music wherever you stream your favorite music. Please support independent artists.
Original music by Mike Pellegrino.
If you like what you've heard, please remember to subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps other people find the podcast. Thanks for listening.
Grazie.
Bailey Leaf,
Rob Janicki, Mike Pellegrino, Thurina Bella,
Eric Beatner, S.W. Loudon, Ronnie Barnett,
Michael Janicki, Peyton Janicki.
This show's executive producer is Lulu McGillicuddy and is in the loving memory of
Rufus Thunderlove.
Abandoned Albums receives funding from Damon Pharmaceuticals, the makers of Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is the only chewable tablet made to combat stomach unease associated with mediocrity. Taken daily, Ben Affleck can help combat explosive gastrointestinal shame. You can find a multitude of flavors in the incontinence section of your local pharmacy. Ben Affleck, save yourself the embarrassment.
The side effects include dry mouth, headache, anal leakage, muscle soreness, bad decisions, gender confusion, constipation, evil spirit possession, and banality. Use only as directed.
And now, until we meet again next time, I remain as always obediently yours.
Abandoned Albums is a production of Paw Print Media.